What's up, everybody? Good morning. Welcome to the Canes Insight Daily podcast powered by Anajar and Levine Accident Attorneys. Portal continues to pop. We'll give you the absolute latest on all the movement in, the movement out. It is nonstop. We'll give you the absolute latest. Also talking recruiting, even Canes basketball recruiting. Huge commit for the Hoop squad. Got some national perspective on the Canes football team. Josh Pate had some pretty interesting comments. We'll get into all of that. First, talk about some folks who will hold you down in the state of Florida. That is Anajar and Levine Accident Attorneys. If you or someone you care about has been injured in an accident, you could be entitled to significant compensation. Dial 1-800-747-FREE, 1-800-747-3733. Take back control of your life with Anajar and Levine. Pete, hop in here.
Good morning, D.
Feeling great, man. How you liking these morning shows? I know someone might be listening to this.
You
might be listening to it at night or whatever. So I apologize, but
listen, I don't know, man. We just got a text. Got a buddy listening on the boat right now, so you could be listening from anywhere, man.
That's it, baby. Play by the rules says for the latest, very latest news on the transfer portal and the recruiting front, you are in the right place. Hop on Pete, aka the Super Sleuth. Pete, you were sending me all kinds of European maps for like a week before we got this commitment here.
Yeah, I couldn't they were working in silence on this one. I had heard they were going to be getting a euro. They may not be done in the euro market. We'll get more into the pickup here in a bit, D, but I think it's a huge one with Timote Malovic.
I know you've been working on that pronunciation, your Slovakian accent. So let's start with football here. We covered a ton of portal movement yesterday. Night Carr, Zaquan Patterson, Josh Horton. We've been going through kind of all these names. Switching gears here to the latest departure. And I promise you we're going to talk about some folks coming on board. But as far as guys leaving, Elias Rudolph, defensive end, originally from Cincinnati, Ohio, had a cup of coffee here at Deerfield Beach in South Florida, then went back, was committed to Michigan, to Jim Harbaugh and company, flipped to Miami, 4-star defensive end. And look, this is a talented player. I think he's all of 6'5", very fast. Was starting to put on some weight, but still was pretty lean. I can't say this was a surprise because when Miami looked at the roster before spring, and just big picture here, zooming out for a second, because we've done a few of these now with Horton, Nikar, Zaquan. These are talented players. These are guys that at different times have shown flashes for the program. These are 4-star players. I believe all 4 were 4-star recruits. So these are guys Miami is excited about, and they showed talent when they were on campus. In Zaquan's case, he played in games. The problem is this is the win now NIL era of college football. So all of these guys, these 4-star recruits, were significantly compensated right now. And in their minds, they want to play. I mean, why wouldn't they want to play right now? They know they can play somewhere right now. And from Miami's perspective, very expensive players who have yet to break through. So I think in this era of NIL, and we'll see what happens in the future with contracts, et cetera. But right now, with totally free movement with NIL, you're going to see much more of a win now attitude, which is, look, if you're not that guy heading into your sophomore year, in Josh Horton's case, your junior year, it's time to move on for both sides because all these guys want to play and they don't want to sit on the bench, and no one wants to spend resources that are limited on guys that aren't going to play. So I think that's the reality, the idea of developing guys, and it's part of what makes college football great. It's a lot harder in this era. I think if you develop guys, they're going to have to be guys that are going to be less expensive out of high school. Maybe they're not blue chippers out of high school. So there's all recalibration. We can discuss how that's going to go. But with Elias Rudolph, I think this is exactly the same boat as a Horton, Patterson, Carr. Different reasons for each of them, different stories behind each of them, but that's what's happening. With Rudolph specifically, you brought in Marquise Lightfoot, 5-star out of Chicago. You bring in 4-star Elias Rudolph. You bring in 4-star Booker Pickett from the Tampa Bay area. So you have 3 guys who are long, who need to gain weight, and who are pass rush first, right? That is, they're not the same exact player, but they're pretty much the same type of player. So you knew going into spring that there'd be a battle between those types of players. Marquise Lightfoot was not a lock to emerge from that group, right? They were pretty bunched together coming out of the season. But what we saw in spring, at least what I saw in spring, what I think you're seeing on the depth chart here, Marquise Lightfoot took a huge step forward. Huge step forward to not only kind of separate from this group, at least right now, but I think separate as far as being a first team player, being a second team player who plays starter snaps, just really being an impact player on this defense. He's got to do it on the field, but that's where he's trending right now, which if you're signing 5-star guys, you want them to make that kind of leap going into year 2. Pickett, always been solid. We saw him flash a little bit when he played. I believe he had a sack against Duke or a big pressure against Duke. So Pickett's been there. He's a very solid worker. You know what you're going to get there. Rudolph, great kid. I interviewed him. Really grateful to be in Miami. Super talented, very fast, tall. I just think of those 3, he was probably 3rd going out of spring. So if you're 3rd at this point, getting into a second year, I think it just made sense for everybody. Go somewhere else. He's going to continue to gain weight. This is a guy I think, look, 3, 4, 5 years down the road, you say, man, this guy grew into a really nice NFL player because the weight came on. He continued to work on his craft. He's fast, and it worked out for him. I just think in this microwave culture of the portal, free movement, and you're paying the kids, when you have a battle of 3 and you're the 3rd one on April 17th, you jump in the portal. I don't know. What do you think about all that, Pete?
Yeah, I mean, look, it's I think with him, it's just physically just not ready yet. Right. And like you said, but behind a few guys, I think still has some ability. We're not saying this guy can't play the game. Right. But if you're in his shoes, you want to see the field, and there's some guys in front of you right now. Right. So I think it's not the right time for him right now, just because he's not, like I said, doesn't have that weight on just yet. And look, we had a lot of people in the comments yesterday talking about development and, guys aren't improving. Sometimes they need more time at the end of the day. And he's not ready yet. So I really think that kind of similarly to some of these other spots, look, safety, you're going to need to bring in a guy. You're going to need to bring in a guy regardless. But with DN, I think it's a good sign that some of these other players really stepped up over spring, and makes you feel good about where this position's at, considering they didn't really bring anyone in from the portal.
Yeah, and I think that's by design, right? I think the reason you don't bring anyone in from the portal, and look, we'll see how it all shakes out, but I personally, as we sit here today, do not anticipate us bringing in an edge rusher. It's because a guy like a Lightfoot, man. I mean, I think when you see a 5-star player who dominated the All-America game, really, he kind of like Hayden Lowe, who also is going to play, different kind of body type, but they earned their 5th star by dominating all-star games, having, great film, just really showing that, hey, we have unique stuff, and they played hard. Lightfoot played on special teams. He played on kickoff, which I think shows you his intensity and his speed. And then the question is he going to be able to get on the defense and play a lot? He did that. So now you feel good. There's getting questions about Cole McConaughey. Remember, there's different, just to kind of zoom out for a second. There are different positions in this defense for defensive ends. So you have your boundary defensive end. There's hash marks, right? The side that is going to be closer to the sideline, when the ball is placed closer to the sideline in that compressed space, that is your boundary, fill in the blank. In this case, boundary defensive end. The wide side player is your field defensive end in this Heatherman defense. The boundary player in this defense, Heatherman's defense, is your fast, quick, maybe you call him a linebacker kind of guy. That's going to be your Elias Rudolph. That's going to be your Marquise Lightfoot, your Booker Pickett. All those guys were in the same position. Malik Bryant would be in that position as well. Herbert Scroggins would be in that position as well. Messidor, even though he's a bigger guy because of his linebacker experience from high school, he'd probably be in that position as well, at least partly. So that's your boundary defensive end. That's what we're talking about here. We're getting questions about Cole McConaughey from Brandon and some other guys. Cole McConaughey, the big defensive end from Mobile, Alabama, who played a little bit last year. He's going to be your field defensive end. Your Ruben Bain, your Hayden Lowe, your Armando Blunt, your bigger guys. And McConaughey was banged up. I believe he had a wrist or a hand, some hand wrist type injury in spring. So he didn't play, but he's going to be a part of this defense. He played last year. So I think all of those guys will be in one bucket. And then these boundary guys were battling it out real tight. And you're seeing Rudolph, because he is running third of those young guys. Herbert Scroggins also pushing for playing time. I think he says, listen, this is a little crowded. Let me get out of here and get a chance to play. This is just the reality of college football. I could see either Elias, Nykar, Horton, Patterson. And one or multiple of these guys are going to get it together, do what they need to do, and become NFL type players. It's just a reality of college football. And I think if our guys are where they need to be, I'm not worried about that. And I wish all these guys well, especially Rudolph. Great kid talking to him, right? I mean, it's just kind of, you just got to tip your hat if they make it.
Well, and look, I get it. Yalaha Kane, who's one of the people who was frustrated yesterday, said this is the frustration, all the hype, flipping recruits must get guys. Then no one's patient when you saw their deficiencies when recruiting. You saw the project. I don't know if Miami's not being patient with it. I don't know that if Miami would have said, we don't want you on the roster. I don't know that's exactly what happened. But if the kid wants to play and he's not, he has guys in front of him. So the Booker Pickett's, the Marquise Lightfoots, the Malik Bryant's who are in front of him, are those guys not hits? And obviously we still have to see it on the field. They haven't necessarily lived up to it just yet. But from what we understand, if they're in front of him, they're obviously doing something right. And I don't think it's necessarily patience on Miami's side. But if he's not going to play, then I don't really know what the issue is there.
Well, there's a price tag associated with all this too, Pete. So we got to mention that. I mean, if this guy was not getting paid and he just wanted to sit here and develop, Miami would love to develop Elias Rudolph. Why wouldn't they? So I think that's why you have this urgency. But here's the good part about it. So let's go to the field, right? Let's put Messidor to the side. Malik Bryant, 4-star player. Marquise Lightfoot, 5-star player. Rudolph, who's leaving, 4-star player. Booker Pickett was a 4-star player. Herbert Scroggins, who's coming in, is a 4-star player. So you're having a lot of blue chippers competing for limited spots. Naturally, the ones that are not in that spot could be potentially blue chip transfers out, but that's a good problem, right? If your blue chip players aren't playing because very talented players are playing ahead of them, that's just called good recruiting and stacking guys. Now, you got to pick the right guys. Sometimes you pick wrong. You don't want that to be the situation, but you got to be honest about what you're seeing on film. And I think right now, Lightfoot has been the star of that group from what I have seen personally and from what I have heard and from the way the playing time is being divvied. And to me, that's a good outcome from a Lightfoot perspective because he's a 5-star. You want him to live up to that potential, and he's been doing so. Now, all this doesn't matter when you line up and play Notre Dame and they got big defensive tackles and they're trying to block you. That's his hometown school coming from Chicago. So we'll see how the summer goes first and foremost. Are these guys going to continue to gain weight? Are they going to continue to do the right things? Are they going to continue to develop? So by the time we play Notre Dame, these guys are ready to just unleash. It's April 17th. We're still seeing all that. But I think right now, the people that have left, Horton, Carr, Patterson, Rudolph, we're not pushing up the depth chart currently the way you hope they would be. And other players, in some cases like Nykar, Rudolph, even Horton, you have young players in front of them on the depth chart. So we're getting some questions about defensive tackle here, D. And obviously there was a visit set yesterday from Boise State transfer. You want to get into that now? Yeah, give me the name because you're better at the names. So I don't produce it. I don't.
Braxton Felly.
Felly.
Feely.
I was going to go with Feely.
I think it's. I don't know. There's one E, man. Feely's normally with the 2 E's there.
Yeah, Felly. All right, let's say Felly. Boise State defensive tackle. I saw some good buzz on him from other scouting directors, anonymous scouting directors. 247. He was going to visit today. Ends up visiting Cows, moved his Miami visit back. Let's see if that visit happens. But I think what you're seeing with the Canes is, and we've talked about this. We talked about it on the bank yesterday. We talked about it on the website, CanesInsight.com, 7 million posts and counting for free. Sign up today if you haven't already. You get all the recruiting info either before it happens or when the news breaks immediately because it's the most active board, most active community for Canes fans anywhere, and it's all free. Anyways, CanesInsight.com. We've been saying it for months, which is a rotational defensive tackle. You would see that need coming up even before the portal opened. You could see that this was going to be a need. The good news is Justin Scott is a 5-star right at the front of the line, tip of the spear. He looks like he's doing what he needs to do and turning into that top 10 player. That's very important. David Blay, number 2 ranked portal defensive tackle, the first go around in winter. He's there. And Moten, we saw the flashes with him during the season. So I think you feel good about those 3. Now it's about a 4th DT, which if you're trying to play big boy football against Notre Dame when they're pounding the ball, you need a guy to step up. You like this guy with experience. So shout out to Adrian Lorenzo, my co-host on El Big League Show. I'll get another plug here. El Big League Show on YouTube, 786 Sports. Right out Big League Show onto YouTube. It'll pop up. It's my MLB show. We got a lot of MLB fans I know that watch. I'm a huge MLB fan. I love the way the product is trending. So we got a show with my man, Adrian Lorenzo, Miami guy. He is former executive for the Red Sox, 2-time World Series champion, former exec with the Marlins. And we talk Major League Baseball. Check that out if you're a baseball fan. Listen to this El Big League Show. Pete, you got royalties on that name. I know those are your 2 taglines right there. So shout out to you, Adrian. There it is. Oh, look at that. I hope we don't get a copyright violation from ourselves. I got to make sure I tell ourselves not to sue ourselves. But there it is. There's Adrian right there.
I'm trying to get you up here.
Look at that with the Toledo Mud Hen shirt popping up. I gotta get it. Maybe switch to a large. You know, Pete. All those plants are starting to show.
There you go. You got the Bo Jackson behind you there.
There it is. Shout out to Nick Martinez, Belen Jesuit grad, also a big time pitcher in the major leagues. So, anyways, switching gears to defensive tackle, going from the major leagues to the 4th DT on the roster here. Dante Simpson is really looking good. He's going to step up and play. I think he'll play a similar role to what you saw from Justin Scott last year if he keeps trending the way he is. But you need a veteran there to deal with dudes that are grown men in the trenches. So I think that's why you see a Feli setting up visits. That's really what you're looking at.
Question about Blunt here, saying, is he not good enough to break the 2 deep? He's playing D end.
Yeah, he's playing D end. He will shift to a 3 technique in certain formations. From what I understand, that field defensive end, meaning like, again, the long side of the field or the wide side of the field, defensive end, which is your bigger guy. Apparently the 3 technique in this scheme kind of mirrors the responsibilities of that position sometimes. So it's like the same position in certain situations. So Blunt could play D tackle in that formation. He'll play the field. Blunt's going to play a ton. Blunt is definitely not. So if you're asking me, who are the guys that I think are going to be the guys on D-line, wherever you put them? Bain, obviously, Messidor, the 3 defensive tackles I just mentioned, Armando Blunt for sure, Hayden Lowe for sure, true freshman 5-star. I think those guys, like, I compare them to Georgia defensive ends. They're just big, physical, explosive. They look exactly how you want it to look. They're 5 stars. Marquise Lightfoot will be in that mix as well. We'll see if Pickett can fight his way in there. Malik Bryan, I should have mentioned, he'll be in that mix for sure. So, you know, all your 5 stars to me right now, meaning Blunt, Lightfoot, Scott, and Hayden Lowe, are projected to have major roles from what I saw in spring. They all look like they're going in the right direction. They need a good summer. They need a good August camp. They need to stay healthy. But I think all your 5 stars that you've recruited on D-line are going to play major roles. Malik Bryant will play a role. Bain and Messidor, you know, they're going to play a role. And then Mod Moten, he's kind of like Malik Bryant. He played last year. You'll see him. And look, guys got Cole McConaughey coming back from injury. I know I'm leaving people out. This is going to be a nice group, but you want a veteran 4th defensive tackle. I think that's what you're seeing with the Feli visit.
Fresh 3542 says, get a 6 sacks guy D tackle. I would love to.
Hey, listen, to get a 1.5 sack D tackle, to get a D tackle which just can breathe and tie his shoes while, you know, and chew gum at the same time as he walks, that costs a lot of money. This is the most expensive position in college football. It always has been, always will be. I mean, quarterback, I guess, because you have one, but on the total allocation basis, D tackle's where it's at.
Well, and with D tackle too, like with this guy in particular, we talked about it yesterday. Ideally, would you want to bring in a 6'1" sub 300 pounder as your D tackle target in the portal? No, I don't think that that's what you'd ideally be looking for. But how do you convince a quality D tackle to come in and be D tackle number 4? It's a tough sell.
Yeah, 100%.
Unless, again, something like a Daryl Jackson comes available, and I think they'd be all over that. But
yeah, someone's asking Daryl Jackson. I haven't asked. I forgot to ask last time I was talking to sources. I will inquire on Daryl Jackson because I've heard the rumors. In my opinion, people are like, would you take Daryl Jackson if the money's right? No question. He's
slots into a starting role.
Yeah. So we talked about it yesterday. NFL people have him as like a day 2 type pick. So, and he's old now. right? He's been in college football for a while, so his body's mature. Yeah, I'll take Daryl Jackson. I mean, I don't care what he could throw the U upside down, sideways. Defensive tackle. I mean, Simeon Barrow left the team for a minute in this, or was about to lead the team. Remember that whole debacle? And he ended up being all ACC.
And again, I keep mentioning this. He was playing through injury at the end there, so earn my respect. I don't care what happened previously.
Yeah, D tackles. I treat D tackle as its own deal, right? It's such a unique position because there just aren't guys with these bodies and with that kind of combination of skills walking around. It is the most desirable position as far as like, if you're good, you're going to command a lot of money and everybody's going to try to get you. Plus, you're not that easy to spot, or you're not that hard to spot. It's easy to scout. So I think Daryl Jackson is a guy that, for 100%, if that's a real thing, we'd be all over it. I haven't heard anything though. I just know, FSU is a sinking ship, and his buddy Farmer is on his way to the NFL draft. Look, all these defensive tackles that we're talking about, Pete, there's only one way that you are going to be able to fund this operation to get David Blade was a number 2 D tackle in the portal. That's not cheap. Justin Scott was a top 10 player in America. We know what that means, right? Ahmad Moten, every team's probably trying to poach him, right? Because they saw what he did against Florida. They saw what he did.
So they can be fed by Islas Canarias Express. Oh, you're going with Kane's connection here. I didn't know which way you were going with this one.
Which one you got queued up?
I'm messing with you. I have Kane's connection.
Let's go. Yeah, I like what you're thinking, though. I like how you're thinking. We'll get double transition out of this one. CanesConnection.com/CIS. Listen, guys, this is the NIL. This is no secret to what's going on here. If you want to support the program and you want to spend money on the Canes, listen, there's a lot of I'm not asking people to spend their hard-earned money that they could go to their kids. But we all spend money on the Kings. We all buy merch. We all buy drinks for the tailgate. We all spend money on this program that we love. If you want your money to actually help the product on the field, there's only one way to do it. There's not another way. There's only one. CanesConnection.com/CIS, which is going to contribute to the NIL fund to pay these players, right? There's no secrets to this game. The benefit is you get a ton of cool stuff. We had a great event here at the Titanic, an exclusive event. Now Noah was there, Mark Fletcher, Popo, Hayden Lowe, signing autographs, taking pictures. I saw a kid get a signed Cam Ward jersey out there. This is the kind of things you do when you're on the inside, right? If you're not Canes Connection right now, you're on the outside. If you want to be on the inside, sign up for Canes Connection. You get to all these events. I do exclusive Zooms where I give you all the private information that I can't give you here. Just remember, sign up to CanesConnection.com/ make sure you get that /CIS so we know we can get you access to those private Zooms and everything else. And that's what you got to do if you want to support the program. Oh, look at this, Pete.
Yeah, I saw Christian says Pete not focused after the Real Madrid L. Listen, man, heavy is the head that wears the crown. This is the burden we carry as Blancos. Everyone's just going to keep coming at us. We're focused on thank you, Carleto, for your time. Thank you for your service here. But good luck with the Brazilian national team. And we're waiting for Javi with open arms. You want to get to Islas Canarias Express?
Let's off the coast of Spain are the Canary Islands. That's where my family actually descends from, and that is the source of the name of the number 1 Cuban restaurant on the planet, and that is Islas Canarias Cuban Express, right there in Dayland Mall. This is a brand that goes back over 40 years, the number 1 Cuban restaurant on the planet. There you go. They're the founders right there, the Andrade family, world famous. Chefs come from all over the world to go to Islas Canarias and figure out the recipe of the best croqueta on the planet. They got 7 different varieties, whatever you want with the croqueta, including the OG ham, the classic, right there in Dayland Mall in the dining pavilion. You got all kinds of lunch items, breakfast items, to-go items, desserts, kids, you name it. From the most traditional to the most avant-garde, they have it at Islas Canarias Cuban Express. You can't say that you've tried Cuban food if you have not been to Islas Canarias. Eat like a Cuban at the Cuban capital, Islas Canarias. Right
Updated
there.
Menu here, it looks like.
Oh yeah, it's always getting new stuff. That's what makes it special. Is you have you have the same dishes they've been serving for 40 plus years, plus. That is Islas Canarias. There you go. Mario Moreno showing you some love right there.
Heavy is the head that wears the crown, my brother.
All right, let's get back to football. Wanted to talk about about Josh Pate. He had he's always very popular on the boards because he's someone, what I listen to him for, I don't listen to him a ton just because I got enough time doing doing these own podcasts. But he does a great job. And I think one thing that is very valuable from his insight is he's a guy that goes around to different schools. So he sees up close what everybody looks like. And if you've not had the opportunity to go to practice, it's true with really any kind of live evaluation of sports. You can't really know until you see it in person. There's a different element to seeing certain things in person. And I think particularly when you're seeing college football teams in person back to back, your eye is calibrated to knowing what it's supposed to look like. And one thing that he emphasized, having seen Miami in spring, really he had two main points. His first main point was that, it's hard to judge this Miami team without the upside of a Carson Beck at quarterback. Just basically that right now, what you're seeing from Miami, there's a ceiling on the quarterback play at the moment, based on what you saw in spring, that Carson Beck is somebody with an extraordinarily high ceiling. And when you add that to this team, it changes the whole thing. That was one of his observations from watching everything. The other one he had was the size of the line. He said, he particularly mentioned Markel Bell, just like, look, these guys on both sides of the line, you don't see those at every school you visit. Certainly if you go to like the big name schools like the Ohio States, the Georgias, you're going to see more of that. But there's a difference between that and the have-nots of the world. And I think Miami on the lines right now is a have and not a have-not. Now it's about getting wide receiver up to the have category. Quarterback, you got to get him healthy. But he kind of led with that. And he said, at the end of the day, based on his conversations, and this is obviously what we're hearing and we've been reporting, he expects Miami to be a huge player in the portal. So keep an eye on all of that. But I think Pate basically just validated some of the same things we've been saying on this show all spring. Beck's going to raise the ceiling tremendously and give us a different look. I think Nick will eventually be a guy like that, hopefully. And then the trenches and the defensive line and the offensive line, it gets better every year, and that's just a product of recruiting. Oh, look at John here. He played basketball for Real Madrid in the early 90s after college, man. What a stud.
That's awesome, man.
John, listen, man, if we had this recruiting operation at UM, they might have been throwing NIL money at you to bring you home here to play here at the Miami Hurricanes.
Dude, Madrid's basketball roster is hilarious. The names on there of former NBA high draft picks like Mario Hezonja on the roster is great.
Oh, Ethio Kane saying he thought you were from
Cote
d'Ivoire, Lebanon.
Yeah, so that's the other side of the
descent.
Family. That's my mom's side of the family.
There you go.
My dad's side is the Spanish side, Basque.
Yeah,
Basque region of Spain.
Yep. My wife's actually Lebanese, Cuban descent. They get around everywhere, Lebanese. Anyways, so transition from John of Real Madrid, Holistic Shield, to some more European basketball prospects that are going to be taking their talents down to Miami, Florida, Pete.
Yeah, let me pull up the tweet that came from Draft Express yesterday. It's always a good sign when Draft Express is breaking and Jonathan Givony are breaking commitments. I think the last time that this happened for Miami was Keyshawn George.
We were sharing that one.
Yeah, it was a first-round pick, and we were pumped about that one at the time. There wasn't much info about him at the time, and just with this one in particular, I've mentioned a couple of times Miami's going to be active.
Well, explain who Jonathan Givony is, by the way, because I think this is relevant now that we've gone through the Keyshawn George experience.
Yeah, so he's the guy who leads basically Draft Express, which is ESPN's NBA draft scouting coverage. He's a little more nuanced than Mel Kiper, I would say. He's a guy who actually he travels and he's going to the ABA league here, which is, a lot of those Balkan countries have teams in that league, and it's a highly competitive league. I know you have more info on the program he's coming from, D, but this is a guy who Jonathan Givony, he's talking about guys who are draft prospects down the line. And this is a guy in Malovich who was actually in the draft last year for a stretch, withdrew from eligibility pretty close to the draft, a couple weeks before the draft, before the deadline. But definitely on radars. As you see, you're going to be 21 next week. Has multiple years of eligibility from what I understand, but I'd be hard-pressed to see this guy here for more than 2 years at Miami just because that's the way that the development system works here. And you're seeing this a lot, man. These Euros, these top Euro prospects coming over, just talking to not Timote's agent, but Harun Zerno's agent, who's still going to be making his visit this weekend to Miami, the Bosnian Bulldog. You have, number one, you're getting paid more than you're going to get paid overseas. And number two, really the resources and the strength and conditioning and all of that, right, is at a different level than what it is overseas. So it's becoming a very, very nice option for some of these guys who need a year or two of seasoning here before you take it to the next level. And I'm going to pull up his tape here, D. Really, I mean, I know you watched it as well, but I think we both came away pretty impressed. You're going to see the length and you know, the offensive skill set to this point. But 6'9", 40% from three in 24 minutes a game this season, 17 points per game, 6 rebounds per game, almost 4 assists in the under 18 team. But 50% from the field, 35% from three, 74% from the free throw line. Shooting percentages, no matter what level you're at, tend to translate pretty well. And I think that as I pull his stuff up here, this is a guy with tremendous upside.
Yeah, and so I'm a Miami Heat fan. You guys probably heard me talking about the Heat. Great dominant victory yesterday over the Chicago Bulls. This is the Heat time of the year in the calendar where the playoff wins start to stack. But one of the players that the Heat, one of my favorite players currently injured is Niko Jovic, who's a Serbian, and he played in this exact program, Mega, out there in Serbia. And really what this program is known for is getting guys with NBA talent and developing them. They're not really big on the guys that are just European lifers. They get guys with upside of NBA or other leagues of that caliber and try to develop them. So a guy like this is playing a lot, first of all, probably more than he played for other European clubs, as you can see from these clips. And it's an emphasis on development and identifying guys with a chance to play pro. Obviously, they identified this guy as a guy who could play pro. That's why Giovanni, who's an NBA guy, is tweeting about him. First thing that jumps out to me, Pete, the size. I mean, this is a guy who has major positional size as a forward. He's not skinny, man. He looks like he can gain some strength there, but he's already pretty strong
Good
for the college
too, man.
Yeah, it's and look at that. I mean, that's high level.
Yeah. And I saw some clips here. He was playing against like the Santa Cruz Warriors, like the G League team for the Warriors. So this is good. I'm gonna play that back because it's good stuff. But this is, I know a lot of stuff is U18, but this is high level European competition. I mean, again, we talked about Harun Zerno a little bit. I think he's a little bit more developmental at this point and more of a straight shooter. But this is solid competition that he's playing against.
Yeah, I mean, look, remember Keyshawn George when we got him.
He was playing. Yeah, he was playing on basically. The only clips we had of him was in like the second division in France.
But he ended up being the best. Again, he was the tweet was announced by the same guy who's an NBA guy and who ended up being the best NBA prospect. He played 26 minutes a game this year for the Wizards.
Yeah.
So
now you need to hopefully get more out of this guy in your year or two that you have him than maybe you did with Keyshawn George. Obviously, that wasn't a great season for Miami, and he wasn't starting until the later midway point of the season. But this guy fits the bill of exactly what did we say yesterday? Do you need wing length and shooting? I think this guy fits both of those bills.
100%. And look, I mean, it's kind of looking like an NBA team. You know, I mean, what NBA teams have guys like this. They have rim runners. You know, they have maybe an offensive hub do we figure out the Renault situation? It's spelled like Renault.
Renault. I was told Renault.
You're told Renault. All right. Well, sorry if you're listening to this. We'll get that squared by the time the season starts. I promise. But anyway, so this is built very much like an NBA team with different roles. They're talking about positionless D, ultra aggressive, mucho communication. I'm curious how this guy can play D. Obviously, that's not what Europeans are known for historically. But this guy's body type to me translates to playing defense. He's pretty strong. But Nikola Jokic also came from this program, the best player in the world.
And I'm looking at this guy 2D as I think he's a really nice stretch 4 type for this because we've talked about it. Ude and Renault playing together. I'd expect them to be the starting duo inside, but Renault doesn't bring you much as a shooter. Neither does Ude at this point. But if you can kind of play a lineup where you got a small ball lineup there with Renault at the 5 and this guy at the 4. You bring in a Chris Bell at the 3. I think that could be a really nice lineup to space the floor. Still need, I think if you add a Chris Bell here, you add a Zedno, you have this guy who can shoot it. These other guys who I expect their percentages, to hopefully take a jump, right? Because these guys like Donaldson and Washington aren't bad shooters, but they aren't snipers back there necessarily, right? So they aren't known as long range shooters, right? They're known as guys who can get to the cup, really good defenders, play good team ball. I mean, Donaldson can shoot it, but that's not the name of his game right now. So I'm liking that ability to space the floor with Bell, Zedno, and Malovic. Maybe add another guy in the mix there too.
Yeah, maybe another guard.
Yeah.
Someone that can handle in case someone gets hurt. I mean, really,
Dante Allen, can't forget about him. I think he'll be heavily in the mix as a guy who's handling the ball off the bench.
Right. So you got him, True, and then obviously Donaldson's going to
Trey. Yeah.
Well, True is the
you have Trey and you have True.
Yeah, I'm saying that you have True as more of a defensive player.
Mhm.
This is the Nevada transfer,
New Mexico
transfer. I'm sorry. He'll be more of a with Patino. He'll be more of a defensive guy. With Trey, he's going to be the star of the show. I think Dante Allen will probably be the second ball handler, and then True as the third. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, I would probly say that.
Maybe True at first, and then Dante
True
kind of
was
overtakes him.
playing more off ball from what I've seen last year, but listen, you've got to have three guys who can confidently handle the ball, I think.
And one thing again, we talk about, let's say Renault for now, he's a focal point when he's in. He's not a guy that plays off guys as much. He's someone who it's kind of like Lynn Kidd, quite frankly.
I mean, look, Nor Chadomir, you were running a lot of offense through him. Jordan Miller, you were running a lot of offense through him when obviously completely different coaching staff. But yeah, a guy who can kind of initiate.
This guy, I mean, I didn't see a lot of passing in his clips, but I'm assuming he's probably a pretty good passer. I don't know any players that play in Serbia that aren't great passers. He is not Serbian, though he's Slovakian, which is actually kind of a unique background. I don't know if there's that too many Slovakians in the NBA.
What's his name?
No, I just looked it up. No? The only player from Slovakia that is from the NBA is Richard Petruska.
Wait, who was drafted in 1993? What's Luka then?
He's Slovenian.
Slovenian.
Yeah. Remember, there's one country, Czechoslovakia, then it split. You're probably not even born yet.
I was.
Czech Republic and then Slovakia. Slovakia, I think, plays soccer pretty good too.
It's Czechia.
Czechia, that's right. Yeah, they threw me for a loop with that one. But anyway, so this got to be the first Slovakian. You take him through the name. Pronounce the name for the people so they can get it right.
Timotej
Malovic. Actually, not that hard.
Yeah,
we can get that done. But he plays in Serbia. Serbia's obviously that's Niko Jokic, that's Niko Jovic, that's a ton of guys. They're always really good, and they're always really good passers. So I'm sure part of that mega development program is getting his passing game. So who knows?
Yeah, the ABA is basically like the former Yugoslavian league. So you have teams from Bosnia, Croatia, Montenegro, Serbia, Slovenia, Bulgaria, Hungary. So it's 16 teams in that league, and it's high level ball.
Yeah, I mean that's the Adriatic Sea. So it's the Adriatic Basketball Association. So the Adriatic, that's going to be kind of on the east side of Italy. So you're talking about Slovenia, where Doncic is from, Croatia, Bosnia, where your boy the Bulldog is from, Serbia and Montenegro, Albania, home of Dua Lipa. A lot of good stuff there on the Adriatic Sea. A lot of good basketball.
And Armando Broja.
Who's that?
Don't worry about it. Striker.
There we go.
Our good friend Josh is a big fan of his. Juan Manuel Ventura says, Pete, how do you get all these guys from different parts of the world to play together as a basketball team? How much time until they gel and play as a team? That was a huge thing last year. Obviously, that was an issue. I think the fact that a handful of these guys have played together at the AAU level could go a long way and are familiar with each other's games, like Trey Donaldson, Malik, Dante Allen, a little younger than those guys, but came from the same program as well. So I think that should help. But definitely going to be the toughest part of this thing is getting these guys on the same page. It's a completely new team. So
100%.
But not a Miami exclusive issue.
And by the way, talk about different parts of the world. NBA teams are like this, right? NBA teams have players from all over the world, and they're on one team, and they get the job done. So I think more important than where they're from is their role. I think that is the key to this team is when you bring in guys, have a role in mind. Don't just acquire talent, and try to figure it out from there. That's what we saw last year. If you go back 2 years ago with Keyshawn George, I think part of the reason why Keyshawn George was not as good at Miami as he could have been was because what was his role? He started off as a spot-up shooter, right? By the end, he was one of our better ball handlers, but like we didn't have a clearly defined role for him. Whereas in retrospect, he probably should have handled the ball more because he had that ability and he could have really blossomed there instead of handling it in the NBA like he's doing now. So I think that's something to keep in mind is it's not about where they're from. It's about their roles. And here with our boy, was it Timothé? If his role is shoot threes, play defense, connect with your passing, slash, you develop your slashing, but don't worry about being the pounding the ball and being that guy. I think that's going to help him fit in with his teammates. And, again, maybe I'm just being biased because I watched this guy yesterday in the playing game and he's also from Europe, although a different part.
Well, and I'll leave you with this nugget, D. If people are wondering the impact of what an Andrew Moran can do. So just to put the pieces together here for everyone. Timothé Malovic shares an agent with Nikola Jovic, who did Nikola Jovic's pre-draft training, Andrew Moran. So again, we've talked about this guy who gets them ready for the workouts with the individual workouts with teams and the combine process. Andrew Moran was Nikola Jovic's pre-draft trainer. They share an agent. If you're his agent, Nikola Jovic's agent, who do you probably feel pretty comfortable with sending your guy to develop? Again, this is about if you're the agent, at the end of the day, you don't care about whether Miami wins or not, unfortunately. You care about your guy developing. What better place to do it than with the guy who you've already seen him work with your other big client or one of your other big clients. So I think that well will be open. The Euro well will be very, very alive for Miami.
Yep. And I was, talking about, I might be biased. I saw this guy yesterday and they're both from Europe, but Matas, the draft pick for
Ellis, yeah,
for the Chicago Bulls, kind of similar in terms of just being like, he can shoot. You're wondering if the shooting is going to be consistent, but you see the stroke and the stroke looks good. Great positional size, can slash a little bit, good athlete, can finish, can do a little bit of everything. Again, I haven't done a full deep dive where you're watching multiple games.
You know his background? You're going to love this.
Who, Matas? He's Lithuanian, born in America.
I know that. I know you know that, but you know what sport as a child he was a star in?
No,
until like 12 years old when he started focusing on basketball. He was the top swimmer for multiple events in the state of Illinois. So
there you go. Multi-sport, baby. But we'll see what happens with Timothé, but I'm excited, man. I like what the approach is. And I think this is going to be a team that is physical, that competes. I mean, Johnny Lagoon said it. These guys dodge fireworks in the middle of games.
Dude, those Euro League crowds are awesome.
And Serbia in particular, I mean, those guys are usually pretty tough mentally. And they've had a ton of success. They're probably the second best basketball country besides the USA right now. I know France has some really good athletes as well. But, we'll see. This will be the first Slovakian player in the NBA in since 1993. So that'd be kind of cool if we can get him to that point wearing a University of Miami jersey. By the way, if you want to wear a University of Miami jersey and you want to get 20% off after you buy it, only place to go, Miami Hurricane Team Store. It's MiamiHTS.com. Store right across the street from the university next to the Thesis Hotel, the official retail provider of your Miami Hurricanes. And it's a partner of Canes Insight, which means if you go to the store in person or if you're sitting in Chicago or in Botswana or wherever you want to order, MiamiHTS.com. And you can just put promo code INSIGHT20. You get 20% off your first item at Miami Hurricane Team Store. It's Insight20 promo code online. Just say Canes Insight when you go to the store. They'll press the button. They know where it is. That's 20% off. Shout out to Harry. Shout out to Jeremy. Shout out to the whole team out there.
Just got a text here from young Trenton Breeze, who's in the chat here, who's a little breaking news. He says that Kentucky is now in contact with Harun Zedno. That they want him.
That's not good.
I mean, yeah.
It's a battle.
That's it's good news, though. Good to see them in the mix there.
All right, man. Well, hey, look, Johnny Lagoon's in Japan. I'll be there in 2 weeks. So I'm gonna hit me on the side for some recommendations. Anyways, appreciate everybody joining us here with these morning shows. Let us know if you like these morning shows. Obviously, you can listen whenever. We're on all day. And any feedback, we're heading to the summer. Anything you want to see, let us know. We're going to cover the portal. We're going to be covering recruiting. We're going to be covering everything like we've been doing. But we're trying to take this thing to the next level, man. Got a lot of stuff to talk about because we got basketball running on all cylinders now. Baseball, let's see if they can keep pushing here, potentially make the regional. And football, I expect a lot of fireworks in the portal and in recruiting. So we're trying to give it all to you here on the Canes Insight Daily podcast. Go Canes.
Go Canes. See you guys tomorrow.